The series begins with Rue, who is born in the United States just 3 days after the Twin Towers collapse. She grows up in a middle-class family, and early on we see her sitting with her mother, who starts noticing that her daughter sees strange things. After medical evaluations, a specialist diagnoses Rue with obsessive-compulsive disorder and generalized anxiety, warning that she may also be bipolar. Rue is placed on heavy medication at a very young age, and her mother reassures her that many people live with the same conditions, while hiding the darker truth that most of them eventually took their own lives. As Rue gets older and starts school, she begins suffering from intense panic attacks that leave her gasping for air. Suddenly, she collapses, blacks out, and feels as if she has died. Years later, Rue reaches high school, and we see her at a party, where it becomes clear that she has developed a serious drug addiction. When her mother discovers the truth, she sends her to a rehabilitation center, where Rue spends the entire summer. After completing treatment, she is released, and the moment she sees her younger sister, she hugs her tightly before getting into the car with her mother to head home. At the same time, Jules appears and introduces herself to Rue, explaining that she has just moved to town and will be attending the same school. Despite everything, it is obvious that Rue has no real intention of staying clean. Then, as soon as she gets home, she goes straight to her old dealer, Fezco. He asks if she truly got sober like everyone says, so Rue jokes with him, claiming her life changed after devoting herself to Christ. Not long after, she buys drugs that act fast and completely numb her senses. As she leaves, she runs into Nate, the school's football star. Rue clearly dislikes him, especially because he once tried to sexually harass her. Nate is surprised to see her and invites her to a party at McKay's house. McKay seems uneasy, worried about how his mother would react if she found out, but Nate pressures him until he agrees. Meanwhile, the group spots Jules riding her bike, and Nate decides to mess with her, deliberately hitting her with his car until she crashes. We then learn that Jules moved to this town after her parents separated, and that she now lives with her father. Later, she opens a dating app, becomes interested in one of the messages she receives, and decides to meet the guy. She apologizes to her friend Kat, telling her she won't be able to attend the party with her. When Rue gets home, she finds her mother waiting and questioning where she has been. Rue lies, saying she went out to eat, but her mother doesn't believe her and admits she no longer trusts her. Frustrated, Rue locks herself in her room, only to panic even more when she learns her mother plans to drug test her. Desperate, Rue looks for a way out and realizes the safest option is to use someone else's urine sample. She goes to Lexi's house, her longtime friend, even though they've grown distant. Still, Lexi agrees to help and gives Rue her sample. After Lexi's father greets her, Rue rushes home, knowing the test checks temperature. Inside the bathroom, Rue's mother insists on staying with her, unable to fully trust her. When she finally turns away, she explains that she is only doing this because she's afraid of losing her daughter. Suddenly, Rue remembers her younger sister finding her unconscious after an overdose, and the guilt hits hard. When the test comes back clean, her mother feels relieved, believing Rue hasn't relapsed. Once again, Rue lies, telling her mother she'll be staying over at Lexi's to attend the party, and her mother agrees. Meanwhile, Jules gets ready to meet the man she's been talking to online. She becomes anxious upon arriving at the location and texts him to make sure he won't hurt her. Elsewhere, McKay grows irritated with Nate for speaking cruelly about the girl he likes, who turns out to be Cassie, Lexi's sister. Nate shows McKay explicit photos of Cassie, deeply affecting him. Later, McKay meets Cassie, but he seems distracted. He tells her she's the most beautiful girl he's ever seen, which touches her deeply. They become intimate, but tension quickly rises, and Cassie lashes out at him. McKay apologizes, insisting he never meant to hurt her. Later, Rue heads to the party and runs into a group of girls who are shocked to see her and offer her a ride. She immediately agrees, since she hates riding a bike while high because she crashes too often. At the same time, it becomes clear that the man Jules is meeting is much older than her, forcing her to lie and claim she's 22. Nervous but determined, she goes through with it. When Rue arrives at the party, she snorts the drugs she bought, and suddenly, everything feels distorted, as if she's walking on walls instead of the ground. Jules then decides to head to the party and messages Kat, but Kat never sees it because she's busy drinking with McKay's brothers. As the night unfolds, Fezco sits beside Rue and admits he was genuinely worried about her. He tells her he's seen too many people die from drugs, and even if he doesn't understand what's going on in her head, he knows for sure that drugs are not the answer. Rue opens up to Fezco and starts talking about her childhood. She tells him that one night, after her father's test results came back, she was sleeping next to her parents when she suddenly had a severe panic attack and passed out. She was rushed to the hospital, where doctors injected her with Valium. Rue explains that in that moment, she realized this was the feeling she had been searching for her entire life, because the world suddenly felt quieter, safer, and less overwhelming. Fezco is visibly moved by her honesty and admits that he's genuinely high just being part of a conversation this deep. Meanwhile, Nate is growing increasingly frustrated after his ex-girlfriend Maddie deliberately tries to provoke him, making him jealous by being with another guy. Unable to control his anger, Nate turns his attention toward Jules. He confronts her at the party, asking who invited her. Jules freezes and struggles to answer, and Nate keeps pressing her, loudly asking if anyone there even knows her. Eventually, Jules snaps. She grabs a knife, threatens Nate, and deliberately cuts her own hand right in front of him. Terrified, Nate backs away immediately. Rue witnesses the entire scene, follows Jules outside, and introduces herself. When Rue asks her what she plans to do, Jules says she's heading home. Rue offers to go with her, and Jules agrees without hesitation. Back at Rue's house, Rue cleans Jules's wound and then casually suggests that they drink together. Later that night, when Nate returns home, a disturbing truth is revealed. His father is the man who had been talking to Jules online. We learn that Nate discovered his father's secret when he was just 11 years old, after finding and watching all of his videos. Terrified, Nate ran back to his room, but his father followed him, woke him up, and told him that from the moment Nate was born, he knew he had an unbreakable will. He tells him that no one in this world will ever truly support or protect him, and that he should never allow himself to be weak or give up. Deeply affected by his father's words, Nate throws himself into extreme physical training. As he grows older, he joins the American football team, excels by the end of the season, and eventually becomes the team captain. We learn that Nate thrives on winning and dominance, but harbors deep resentment toward the other men in his life. He has an older brother he despises for being weak, and he shows little respect for his mother either, seeing her as passive and neglected. Nate begins mentally listing what he likes and dislikes in women, and that's when he notices Maddie, who perfectly matches everything he desires. They start dating, and Nate becomes obsessively protective of her, convinced it's his duty to shield her from predators and harassment at school and in public. When he learns that Maddie is a virgin with no past relationships, he becomes even more attached, to the point of imagining marriage and starting a family with her. That illusion begins to crack on the night of the party, when Nate's uncontrollable anger finally surfaces. After returning to school following rehab, Rue feels anxious and out of place, but she relaxes the moment she sees Jules. It becomes clear that the two have grown close since the party. Rue offers Jules a drink, and although Jules hesitates at first, she decides to try it. Watching Jules drink fills Rue with happiness. At the same time, Kat meets Ethan and immediately seems intrigued by him. Soon after, Rue attends class and desperately tries to avoid her teacher, who asks students to talk about what they did over the summer. Rue fails to escape and is forced onto the stage. As the spotlight hits her, she freezes, unable to speak, while the teacher pressures her to describe the most impactful moment of her break. Suddenly, Rue remembers being hospitalized, her younger sister's disappointment, and the constant fights with her mother. She completely breaks down when she recalls waking up in the hospital to find her mother and sister asleep beside her bed. Hearing classmates whisper and mock her, Rue panics, abandons the stage, and runs to the bathroom. She tries to use drugs to calm herself, but stops when she hears someone knocking. When she opens the door, she finds Lexi, who only wants to check on her. Instead of accepting the concern, Rue lashes out, accusing Lexi of making her flush the drugs and cruelly telling her that she was never her closest friend. Hurt and humiliated, Lexi walks away. Meanwhile, Nate begins closely monitoring the guy who hooked up with Maddie at the party, determined to learn everything about him so he can eventually take revenge. After school, Rue attends her required rehab meetings, where she remembers the first time she ever used drugs. We learn that her father used medication to cope with his illness, and because her mother was working extra jobs to pay for treatment, Rue often stayed alone with him. At just 13 years old, she decided to try the drugs herself. Once the meeting ends, Rue manipulates the attendance coordinator, forcing him to sign off on all the meetings she skipped so she can convince her mother that she's improving. The next day at school, Kat notices everyone staring at her and soon discovers that McKay's brother secretly filmed her and leaked the video. Kat confronts him and threatens to report him to the police unless he deletes it. Terrified, he agrees and spreads the word that Kat was not the girl in the video. Later, Kat is called into the principal's office and questioned about the leaked footage. Kat firmly denies it and accuses the principal of profiling her because she's overweight, pointing out that the girl in the video was also overweight. Intimidated, the principal panics and apologizes. After that, Rue and Jules leave school together, racing each other on their bikes and genuinely enjoying the moment. Rue invites Jules to have dinner at her house, but Jules apologizes and says she can't make it because her father wants to have dinner with her. She promises to come over another day. Meanwhile, Kat decides to blackmail McKay's brother after what he did to her, forcing him to buy her expensive gifts and pay for everything out of his own pocket. McKay goes to Cassie's house to see her and feels awkward sitting with her mother, who tells him that Cassie reminds her of herself. Cassie quickly steps in and asks her mother to leave them alone. Elsewhere, we see Jules chatting online with someone whose face she has never seen, yet she seems happy and emotionally invested in the conversation. At the same time, Rue goes to Fezco's place and asks him for drugs. He refuses and tells her to leave immediately because some friends of his are about to stop by. He warns her that they're dangerous and that he doesn't want her around them. Rue stubbornly refuses to leave without getting drugs. As they argue, his friends arrive, who turn out to be serious drug dealers. Fezco tells Rue to stay quiet and not say a word until they leave. Rue is terrified but manages to hold herself together. Meanwhile, McKay opens up to Cassie about how stressed and overwhelmed he feels at college. Cassie tries to get closer to him emotionally, but McKay pulls away, accusing her of only caring about relationships. Embarrassed and hurt, Cassie distances herself. When the dealer at Fezco's house notices Rue, he assumes she's Fezco's sister, but it's clear he doesn't fully believe it. He forces Rue to take extremely strong drugs. Fezco tries to stop him, but fails. Panicking, Rue silently prays that nothing happens to her, as she's forced to take the drugs against her will. Meanwhile, Nate follows the guy who hooked up with Maddie until he learns where he lives. Nate sneaks into his house and shocks him by accusing him of raping his girlfriend. Nate threatens him, saying he can't report anything because Maddie is underage, meaning it would legally count as statutory rape. The guy defends himself, insisting that Maddie wanted it and that nothing was forced, but Nate refuses to listen. He brutally beats him until his face is completely destroyed, then calmly takes a shower, gets dressed, and leaves. Back at Fezco's place, Rue loses consciousness from the drugs. The dealer demands money, but Rue has none, so Fezco pays him to make him leave. Afterward, Fezco calls Jules and asks her to help by taking Rue home. Later, Nate meets up with Maddie, and the two end up getting back together. McKay messages Cassie to apologize, explaining that he's just under a lot of pressure from college. Jules meets Fezco, takes Rue with her, and lets her stay the night. Once home, Jules continues talking online with the same guy, who is revealed to be Nate. The story then flashes back to Kat's childhood. We learn that she once had a happy life and was known for being smart. As a child, Kat falls in love with a classmate who also likes her back. But after a family trip, Kat gains weight from drinking too much juice. The boy slowly pulls away because of her weight, which shatters her confidence. Kat tries to lose weight but repeatedly fails. As she grows older, she begins writing romantic stories online, which become extremely popular. She gains a huge following but remains anonymous, and no one knows she's the author. We also learn that Kat deeply hates school and everyone in her town. Back in the present, Rue attends a rehab meeting and tells everyone she has been sober for 60 days. In reality, she's only been clean for 2 weeks, after Jules forced her to stop by threatening to end their friendship. Unable to handle losing someone she loves again, Rue promises Jules she'll quit. When Rue gets home, her mother is waiting and angrily confronts her for staying out late and not answering her calls. Rue lies, claiming her phone died, then asks her mother to drug test her to prove she hasn't been using. Her mother agrees and feels relieved when the test comes back clean, unaware that the sample actually belongs to Jules. At the meeting, Rue shares her story, saying that 2 months earlier, she woke up from a coma, and the moment she saw her mother and sister, she realized how wrong she had been. She admits she terrified them and decided to change for their sake, believing she owes it to everyone she loves to be okay. After 2 weeks of sobriety, Rue returns to school, but she's anxious because Jules is falling in love and growing distant, constantly distracted by someone else. We see Jules talking to Nate nonstop, their relationship intensifying until she unknowingly falls for him without realizing who he really is. Maddie begins to sense that something is wrong, noticing that Nate seems distant and uninterested in her. While they talk, Nate keeps receiving messages, but he grows nervous and refuses to open his phone. Jules talks to Rue and tries to convince her about her new love interest, admitting that she feels like she's falling in love. Rue isn't convinced, but she chooses to stay quiet. Around the same time, Kat buys a lemonade as part of her diet, but she doesn't have enough money, so Ethan offers to pay for it. Embarrassed, Kat explains to the woman selling the lemonade that she's on a diet and asks Ethan not to offer her food anymore. Shortly after, Kat decides to start making money online by posting videos while keeping her face hidden. Jules is genuinely happy when she learns that Rue has been sober for 2 weeks. She hugs her tightly and tells her how proud she is. Afterward, Rue leaves to grab some water and notices medication sitting on the table. She recognizes it as drugs, freezes for a moment, then quietly steals a pill. Rue excuses herself, rushes out of the house, takes the pill, and later heads to a recovery meeting where she once again talks about herself. As she leaves, a man from the meeting named Ali waits for her outside and tells her that 60 days is a long time and that her share was powerful. Rue thanks him, and Ali asks what saved her. When he learns that it was her younger sister, he reflects on how much damage people can cause in their lives and admits he can't imagine the impact something like that would have on a 13-year-old. His words deeply affect Rue when he explains that her sister will likely struggle to trust people and constantly fear losing the ones she loves, which could affect all her future relationships. It becomes clear that Ali knows Rue is lying about her sobriety. He tells her he's experienced enough to spot it easily, then hands her his card and suggests they meet for coffee sometime. When Rue gets home and sees her sister, guilt overwhelms her. She sits beside her and hugs her tightly. Meanwhile, Maddie goes through Nate's phone and grows even more suspicious when she finds a photo, even though she can't tell who he's cheating with. Later, Kat uses the money she's earned to buy new clothes and completely changes her style. When she arrives at school, everyone stares at her, but she doesn't care and seems genuinely happy. Jules runs up to Rue, excitedly telling her that the guy she's been talking to asked to meet her. She smiles as she explains they plan to meet at the lake during the festival. Rue immediately gets upset and warns her that it's dangerous, insisting she should meet him somewhere public. Jules is confused and hurt by Rue's intense reaction. She tells Rue that she only shared this with her because she thought Rue would be happy for her. Upset, Jules walks away. Feeling guilty, Rue goes to Jules's house and apologizes, explaining that she only reacted that way because she was scared something might happen to her and that she couldn't bear losing her. Overcome with emotion, Rue breaks down in tears. Jules hugs her, reassures her that she's not angry, and tells her she loves her. After leaving Jules's place, Rue goes to Fezco and asks him for drugs, but he refuses, telling her he won't help her destroy herself. He warns her not to come back and shuts the door in her face. Furious and desperate, Rue pounds on the door, screaming that he's the reason she's like this and that he can't abandon her now. She tells him that if he truly cared, he never would have let her use drugs in the first place. Rue keeps shouting and begging him to open the door, but Fezco remains firm and refuses. Eventually, Rue breaks down in tears. With no one else to turn to, she calls Ali and asks him to meet her for coffee. The story then flashes back to Jules's childhood. We see her mother taking her to a psychiatrist because of her struggles with self-harm. Jules clearly doesn't want to go, but she slowly opens up during the session. Her relief turns to shock when she realizes her mother lied to her and is actually admitting her into a psychiatric hospital. Jules screams and begs to be let go, but her mother refuses. She fights everyone around her, even injuring a nurse, and ends up spending days locked inside the hospital. One day, when a nurse brings her food, Jules begs him to leave a soda can behind. After he leaves, she uses it to cut herself. Over time, Jules improves and is eventually released, but her mother's condition worsens. Her parents separate, and Jules goes to live with her father, whom she loves deeply. As she grows older, Jules enters many relationships, yet constantly feels unreal, like a character in a book or a TV show. Meeting Rue changes everything. Jules feels an instant connection and believes Rue will be her closest friend forever, long before she ever falls in love. Back in the present, Rue meets Ali and talks nonstop until he cuts her off, telling her he's not interested in everything she's saying. He asks why she really called him. Rue admits she had no one else and opens up about Jules, confessing that she's terrified of losing her. Ali tells her that her story sounds a lot like drugs. Rue responds that it feels like a good thing, but Ali calmly explains that drugs only feel good the first time. The day of the festival finally arrives, and everyone attends. We see Fezco opening his convenience store, preparing to sell drugs freely as the night unfolds. Rue attends the festival with her younger sister and Lexi, while Jules is there with Kat, the two of them laughing, playing games, and having fun. At the same time, Nate gets into a heated argument with Maddie over her outfit. He tells her he can't introduce her to his parents dressed like that and demands that she go home and change. In the middle of all this, Jules spots Rue, runs toward her, hugs her tightly, and tells her how much she missed her. Lexi feels awkward as Rue leaves her standing alone to be with Jules. Elsewhere, McKay takes Cassie to Nate's father's restaurant. Nate's father asks if they're a couple, and McKay quickly denies it, saying they're just hanging out. Cassie is hurt by his response and storms off. McKay chases after her, trying to explain that he didn't want to say anything in front of Nate because he knew Nate would make stupid comments, especially since he knows about her past. Cassie is deeply affected and doesn't know how to respond. McKay eventually walks away. Later, Cassie runs into Maddie, who notices how upset she is and takes her with her. The two end up buying drugs from Fezco. Maddie then confesses that she went through Nate's phone phone and found disturbing things on it. Meanwhile, Jules unexpectedly comes face to face with Nate's father. She is shocked, and when Rue tells her that he's Nate's dad, Jules can't believe it. To prove it, she walks up to him and asks for a drink. He completely freezes, drops the cup, and panics the moment he recognizes her. Rue watches in disbelief, realizing something is seriously wrong. At the same time, Nate notices them together and clearly grows uneasy. Rue becomes afraid, knowing that Nate's father is wealthy and powerful, and realizes that Jules has now drawn his attention. As they're talking, Rue gets a call from her mother, who says her sister isn't answering her phone and asks Rue to find her and get home immediately. We then see Kat standing with Ethan, and the two seem to have great chemistry. Ethan offers to buy tickets for a ride while Kat grabs them another drink. Kat happily agrees, but moments later she's crushed when she sees Ethan talking to another girl. Misunderstanding the situation, not realizing the girl is actually his sister's friend, Kat gets angry, drops the drink, and walks away. At the same time, a drunk Maddie decides to publicly embarrass Nate's family while they're being honored, shouting insults at his mother. Furious, Nate drags Maddie away, chokes her in a fit of rage, then lets go and tells her they're breaking up. Maddie stops him and confronts him about the photos she saw on his phone. Meanwhile, Jules and Rue search desperately for Rue's sister, but can't find her, eventually splitting up to look separately. Kat, still upset after leaving Ethan, decides to start a relationship with an older man. Nate tries to explain himself to Maddie and begs her to promise she won't expose his secret. He starts telling her the truth about his father, then apologizes and tells her he loves her. At the same time, Nate's father searches the festival for Jules until he finally finds her. He begs her not to expose him, saying it would completely destroy his life and offering to do anything she wants. Jules tells him she has no intention of hurting him, apologizes for what she did, calls herself foolish, and promises it will never happen again. Relieved, he thanks her and walks away. Shortly after, Jules receives a message from Nate asking her to meet him in 30 minutes. Rue continues searching for her sister and finally finds her sitting with a group of boys who are using drugs. They mock Rue for being an addict, but she shuts them down, grabs her sister, and leaves. Cassie, now high, starts acting erratically in front of everyone. She becomes embarrassed when she notices people staring and laughing at her. Rue takes her sister home and promises not to tell their mother what she saw, warning her never to do it again. The two end up laughing and joking together. Later that night, Nate's father returns home, locks himself in his office, and is shocked to discover that Jules' explicit video is gone. Meanwhile, Jules goes to meet the person she's been talking to online, only to discover it's Nate. She tries to leave, but Nate stops her and threatens to release her explicit video if she ever exposes his father. Jules tells him she only sent the video to him and insists she'll tell everyone the truth anyway. Nate threatens her again, saying she'll never get into college or find a job, and that people will look at her with nothing but disgust wherever she goes. He then tells her she doesn't deserve that, calling her kind, smart, and deserving of a good life. He begs her not to destroy his life in exchange for leaving her alone. Furious, Jules insults him and says he's just like his father. Nate snaps, grabs her by the hair, then lets go and walks away. Jules completely breaks down and goes to Rue's house, asking to stay the night. Rue asks if she's okay and whether she met the guy she liked. Jules says he wasn't who she thought he was and starts crying. Rue hugs her tightly and comforts her. The episode then flashes back to Maddie's childhood. We see her dancing and singing in a competition, with everyone clearly impressed by her. That's why Maddie loved festivals and dreamed of becoming a beauty queen. However, her dream collapses when the pageant organizer is exposed for child abuse. Maddie falls into depression and isolates herself at home for a full week. We learn that Maddie's mother works at a nail salon while her father is unemployed. As a child, Maddie often went to work with her mother, quietly observing the wealthy women who came into the salon, paying close attention to how they dressed, how they spoke, and the lives they lived. As she grows older, it becomes clear that Maddie admired Nate long before they ever dated. She deliberately chose to be with him because he always paid attention to her, genuinely cared about her, and truly loved her. And she loved him too. Their relationship initially seemed healthy. However, it's revealed that Maddie wasn't always honest. She lied when she told Nate that he was the first man in her life. Over time, Maddie realizes that to get what she wants from Nate, she has to feed his ego and make him feel powerful and dominant. Even so, she understands who he really is, and it becomes clear that she's afraid of him, especially after the party when he choked her. In that moment, she felt sick and shaken, not simply because he was violent, but because she realized she was terrified of continuing to love him, despite everything he did to her. The next day, Nate's father is at work when his wife calls to tell him that the school has requested a meeting about their son. When he arrives at the school, the stress overwhelms him to the point that he has to rush to the bathroom and vomit. We learn that that Maddie returned to school after the party and tried to hide the marks on her neck. However, she collapses due to low blood pressure caused by the drugs she took that night. During the medical examination, staff noticed the bruises on her neck. The principal later calls Maddie into his office and asks about the marks, but she refuses to speak. Suspicious, the principal begins to suspect Nate. He reminds Maddie that she's a minor and explains that if there is evidence of abuse, the police must be notified. The school then starts questioning her classmates, and eventually, the principal contacts the police, who arrest Nate. Cassie is shocked when she learns from her sister that the entire school now knows Maddie found disturbing images on Nate's phone. At the same time, Kat runs into Ethan in class and decides to ignore him completely. Confused by her behavior and unaware of what he did wrong, Ethan tries to understand, but Kat refuses to explain anything. Despite Maddie crying and insisting that Nate did nothing wrong, her mother decides to accuse Nate of assault anyway. When Nate's father demands to speak with Maddie's family, the officer refuses and says he must speak with Nate first. Nate's father enters the room and asks his son directly if he choked Maddie. Nate hesitates and says, "Not exactly." His father repeats the question, making it clear he expects a denial. Nate understands and agrees to go along with it. His father reassures him, tells him to stay calm, and instructs him to walk out of the school with his head held high. As Nate is escorted out, the police arrest him. When he sees Maddie, he tells her that he loves her. Jules watches Nate leave with his father and becomes visibly shaken. Rue notices Jules's reaction and asks what's going on, questioning whether Nate found out about her connection to his father. Jules denies it and begs Rue not to mention the situation to anyone, even if Jules ends up hating her for it. Rue promises, but then casually suggests they could blackmail Nate's father for money. Jules is disturbed by the idea, snaps at Rue, says this isn't a joke, and walks away. At the police station, Maddie refuses to give her fingerprints. The investigator is forced to restrain her and take them anyway, warning her that someone who treats her this way does not truly love her. Meanwhile, Nate is questioned by the police. He denies choking Maddie, admits she was high that night, and claims his father always warned him about her behavior. He insists that he loves her despite knowing she had other relationships when they were apart. Even so, the school decides to suspend Nate until the investigation is complete, and he is also removed from the football team. Later, Rue meets Allie again, and it's clear they've become friends. Allie tells her that her relationship with Jules likely won't last and that they'll eventually drift apart when college comes. Rue becomes anxious and insists that Allie meet Jules someday. At the recovery center, Rue raises her hand to speak and finally admits the truth. She confesses that she lied when she said she had been sober for 60 days. She explains that she met someone who helped her deeply, and because of that person, she chose to quit using drugs. She acknowledges that her motivation may have been selfish. Turning to Ali, she admits he was right and that they probably will separate one day, but she desperately hopes he's wrong. She reveals that she's been sober for 13 days and that her life has already begun to improve, which is why she came to the meeting to finally tell the truth. After the meeting, Rue messages Lexi to apologize for the hurtful things she said before. She tells her she wants to fix their friendship and make things right. Meanwhile, McKay decides to reconcile with Cassie and apologizes for not standing up to Nate that day. Cassie admits she was hurt because she felt he wasn't proud of her. McKay reassures her, saying he is proud of her because she's his girlfriend and asks her to trust him. At home, Maddie gets into a heated argument with her mother, fiercely defending Nate and insisting that she's sure he loves her. Her mother refuses to listen and makes it clear she will not drop the case. Maddie gets upset, leaves the house, and storms out. She calls Kat and asks if she can stay over, but Kat apologizes and says she's busy because she's with the guy she met at the festival. Meanwhile, Rue goes out with Jules and Lexi, and the three of them play around and have fun. Later, Lexi tells Jules that Rue has been doing much better because of her. Jules becomes uncomfortable, quietly walks away, and hides in the bathroom. At the same time, Nate calls McKay and asks him to have Cassie message Maddie. Maddie feels relieved and happy when Nate reaches out and asks her to meet him at a hotel, which turns out to be the same hotel where his father cheats on his wife. When Maddie arrives, she hugs Nate and breaks down in tears. The story then flashes back to McKay's childhood. We see his father training him relentlessly. Although McKay resents the pressure, he understands that his father believes it's for his own good. McKay is talented, and his father teaches him how to control his anger so he won't lose everything. As McKay grows older, the strict routine pays off, and he's selected as one of the top American football players in college. However, once he actually gets there, McKay becomes discouraged when he realizes he isn't special anymore and that many players are just as good, if not better. Over time, he accepts that he'll never become a professional athlete. During that period, McKay starts falling for Cassie. even though he's bothered by the explicit videos of her circulating online and constantly wonders how someone could do that to herself, especially after she denied it at the festival. He's still drawn to her. McKay enjoys the way other guys look at him when he's with Cassie, as if her choosing him proves his worth. Back in the present, McKay goes to Cassie's house to take her to a Halloween party. He becomes upset when he sees what she's wearing and tells her he can't go out with her dressed like that because everyone will stare at him. He pressures her into wearing his football jersey instead. Later, we see Cassie alone at the party, wearing the outfit she actually likes. Daniel, the guy she met at the festival, tries to talk to her, but Cassie walks away. Kat is thrilled when her parents go on vacation and leave her home alone, giving her the freedom to work comfortably and increase her online income. Meanwhile, Rue feels hurt when Jules leaves her standing alone and starts drinking with Kat. At the same time, we see Nate out to dinner with his family. His father tells him to keep his head up as they walk in, but they're immediately stopped by the restaurant owner, who refuses to let them enter because of Nate. Worried about the restaurant's reputation, the owner turns them away. Furious, Nate snaps at his father, saying he never wanted to go out in the first place. We learn that Nate spends his first days after being suspended mostly at home, doing nothing except driving around aimlessly. Sometimes he checks on Maddie, meeting her weekly at the hotel, and it's also revealed that he's been watching Jules from a distance. At a party, Rue watches Jules drinking and dancing, and Lexi comments that Jules is clearly not acting like herself. While they're talking, Rue spots her sister sitting with a guy and using drugs. Enraged, Rue grabs him by his clothes and drags him away against his will. Cassie tries to reach out to McKay, sending him messages to apologize, but he responds coldly and says he's not interested in talking. Meanwhile, Rue and Lexi confront the guy who was with Rue's sister. Rue threatens him, saying she's been to rehab and met dangerous criminals there, warning that she'll unleash them on him if he ever gives her sister drugs again. She even threatens to have him stripped and beaten in front of his own house, then orders him to leave and tell her she's beautiful. Terrified, the guy obeys. Ethan shows up at the party and talks to Kat, telling her he wants to understand what happened at the festival, since she suddenly changed toward him for no clear reason. Kat clearly doesn't want to explain, admitting that she doesn't trust anyone. She questions why he even likes her. Ethan is confused and says it's because they went out before and had fun together, but Kat doesn't believe him and assumes he just wants a relationship. Later, Rue runs into Fesco at the party and apologizes for what she said to him earlier. Fesco responds that she's an addict and that he's learned never to trust what addicts say. Rue tells him she genuinely wants to make things right because he's her friend and she cares about him. Fesco tells her he cares about her too and promises to always support her as a friend. He asks how she's feeling now that her body is clean. Rue admits she feels like she's addicted to something new, that happiness feels good, but sadness feels unbearable. At the same time, Daniel tries to get closer to Cassie. She allows it and dances with him, partly because things with McKay have become strained after his college friends mocked and beat him in front of her. Since then, McKay has felt humiliated and ashamed, especially because he froze and cried instead of defending himself. Jules gets drunk and falls into the pool, starting to ramble and say strange things. Rue tries to stop her and begs her to get out of the water, but suddenly Jules pulls Rue into the pool as well. Rue panics, feels like she's choking, rushes out of the water, and locks herself in the bathroom, breaking down in tears. At the same time, McKay arrives at the party and keeps texting Cassie, but she doesn't see his messages. When Lexi notices him, she also texts Cassie to tell her he's there, but Cassie still doesn't see anything because she's in a bedroom with Daniel. McKay searches for Cassie, but just before he opens the room they're in, Lexi stops him and lies, telling him that her sister already went home and probably fell asleep. Inside the room, Cassie tries to push Daniel away and tells him she doesn't want to cheat on her boyfriend. Daniel gets offended and insults her, saying she's the one who came onto him first and always hides behind her boyfriend as an excuse. He angrily tells her that no one will ever truly care about her and that all he wants from her is one thing. Hurt and humiliated, Cassie breaks down, leaves the party, and walks away in tears. When Rue comes out of the bathroom, she says she wants to leave and tells Lexi that she's nothing but a burden. Lexi hugs her tightly and begs her not to say that. Later, when McKay gets home, he finally opens up to his father and admits the truth, that he will never become a professional athlete because he's simply not the best. His father refuses to accept that, warning him that giving in to doubt will destroy him. Elsewhere, Nate threatens the guy he previously attacked, forcing him to go to the police station and confess that he fought with Maddie and choked her at the festival. Nate warns him that if he doesn't comply, he'll accuse him of trying to rape a minor. Terrified, the guy goes to the police and falsely confesses. Maddie then testifies against him, claiming he was the one who choked her. At the same time, Jules goes to the police station and testifies that she witnessed the guy choking Maddie. It's later revealed that Nate forced Jules to do this by threatening to expose her and release her explicit images. Jules is visibly shaken when she later sees Nate with Maddie at the party after he's cleared of all charges. The story flashes back to Cassie's childhood. We see her at one of her birthday parties and learn that her father was extremely attractive, drawing attention from many women, which made her mother deeply jealous and constantly fighting with him, despite the fact that he loved her. Cassie's father adored her and wanted her to become a competitive figure skater. Cassie believed she could go professional because she was talented, but her father couldn't afford the training and eventually stopped encouraging her. As Cassie grows older, she becomes very close to her mother, who clearly struggles with her own issues. A massive argument later erupts between Cassie and her father, leading him to leave the house. Cassie is devastated when she discovers her mother had been lying and that her father left because her mother was cheating. Over time, Cassie realizes her father wasn't perfect either. He begins visiting her and her sister once a week, but those visits slowly fade away until they don't hear from him for a long time. One day, they learn that he was in a car accident caused by drunk driving. Despite everything, Cassie refuses to give up hope, believing her father will recover and get his life back on track. She secretly keeps contacting him behind her mother's back, but he eventually stops responding. On Cassie's birthday, he suddenly reappears and asks to see her. When she meets him, she's terrified to see that he's become a drug addict. She realizes he only wanted to see her so he could steal items from the house and sell them. Her father breaks down in tears and begs her not to tell anyone. Cassie promises, but she never sees him again after that. Cassie continues with her life and starts dating anyone who shows interest in her. Smart or foolish, kind or cruel. They all ask her for the same thing, to take pictures of her. Cassie is horrified when she first sees her images online and even considers ending her life. But eventually she grows numb, fully aware of what people intend to do with her. Later, she meets McKay, who genuinely loves her for who she is, at least until the night of the party. Cassie is shocked when she gets home that night and discovers she's pregnant. After the party, Rue isolates herself in her room, binge watching the same TV show for nearly 22 hours over the course of 2 days. Rue knows she's depressed whenever she locks herself in her room and refuses to even use the bathroom. When she finally tries to get up, she's in severe pain. Jules also isolates herself for an entire week after leaving the police station, refusing to answer Rue's calls or messages. Rue begins to realize that everything somehow connects back to Nate. Determined to uncover the truth, she asks Lexi for help. What starts as curiosity quickly turns into obsession. Rue barely sleeps as she digs deeper, beginning to suspect that Jules is in love with Nate and that he's the same person Jules had been talking to online. Rue pieces everything together and realizes that Nate was using the name of the guy who went to jail. The same guy everyone knew didn't actually rape Maddie because they had all seen him at the party. Rue becomes so consumed by the investigation that she stays up all night and calls Lexi at 2 a.m, explaining that Nate chose Jules because he was attracted to her. Rue talks nonstop until Lexi finally cuts her off, telling her she's emotionally overwhelmed by the case, then hangs up. Cassie gathers her friends and tells them she needs their advice on 2 things. She asks whether she should tell McKay that she slept with Daniel, explaining that she feels guilty and doesn't want to lie to him. Everyone immediately tells her not to confess. Around the same time, Kat remembers that she hooked up with Daniel on Halloween and was shocked when she realized he didn't even remember her. It turns out Daniel was the same boy who liked her back in middle school, but left her after she gained weight. Kat speaks up and tells Cassie that she doesn't need to confess because the relationship probably won't last forever anyway. Maddie snaps at her, calling her a terrible friend. Kat fires back, saying she doesn't care about Maddie or her stories about her abusive boyfriend. Maddie retaliates by saying Kat has been acting strange ever since she changed the way she dresses, adding that she misses the old Kat, the one who wasn't a slut. Deeply hurt, Kat storms out, crying the entire way home. Rue sinks back into depression after her manic episode and begins to suspect that she may be bipolar. When Nate gets home, he talks to his father, admitting that he's not perfect, but that he's trying to improve. His father tells him he doesn't care how Nate got out of the case, but warns him that he needs to be more careful from now on and stop making mistakes. Nate says nothing and retreats to his room. Rue continues to suffer physically, refusing to use the bathroom. When she goes into the kitchen, she runs into her mother's new boyfriend, who tries to make small talk and asks about Jules. Rue snaps at him, telling him he will never replace her father, then walks away. Rue's manic episode returns, and she goes to Fezco asking for a gun so she can threaten Nate and force him to talk. Fezco is stunned and tells her it's the dumbest thing he's ever heard. While they're talking, Fezco gets a message from his drug supplier, who's coming over to drop off merchandise. Nervous, Fezco tells Rue to stay locked in the room and not come out no matter what. Left alone, Rue grows anxious when she notices his grandmother's medication. She hallucinates the drugs calling out to her, begging her to take them. Overwhelmed, Rue sneaks out of the room. Fezco panics when he realizes she's gone, but Rue manages to escape unnoticed. When Rue gets home, she falls back into depression, locks herself in her room, and turns on the same TV show again. Meanwhile, Jules travels to visit a friend to clear her head. She's happy there, especially as her friend does her makeup and listens while Jules opens up about her relationships. Cassie finally decides to tell McKay the truth and reveals that she's pregnant. McKay panics and tells her that if his parents find out, his life will be over. He insists she needs to get an abortion because his future will be destroyed. Cassie is heartbroken and tells him she just wanted time to think. McKay hugs her and softly tells her that one day she'll be the best mother in the world. Later, Nate shows up at Fezco's store to buy something. Fezco warns him to stay away from Rue. Nate asks if they're involved, but Fezco says Rue is family to him. Nate mocks him, calling him pathetic and saying he shouldn't pretend he's some kind of gang leader. Fezco snaps and threatens to kill him if he ever comes near them again. Rue collapses in pain from kidney issues, unable to go to the bathroom, and falls to the floor. At the same time, Nate calls the police and reports Fezco. Realizing what's happening, Fezco immediately flushes all his drugs down the toilet. Cassie wakes her mother in tears and begs her for help as she clings to her. Rue lies on the floor until her mother finds her, lifts her up, and bathes her, knowing exactly what's happening to her. Her mother feels hopeful, believing this pain means Rue is truly recovering from addiction. She hugs her and reassures her that things will get better. Feeling guilty, Jules messages Rue to tell her she misses her. The next day, Rue is taken to the hospital. A nurse offers her pain medication, but Rue lies and asks for something stronger. The doctor recognizes the signs of addiction and prescribes a mild painkiller instead. Rue is strangely happy in the hospital, admitting she feels calm there and never anxious. Jules visits Rue at the hospital and asks if everything happened because of her. Rue tells her that this is who she's always been, but that Jules makes her life better. Jules apologizes. After Rue is discharged, Jules helps her get ready for the dance, does her makeup, and tells her about the trip to see her friend, insisting they should all meet someday. Rue then learns everything Nate did to Jules and wishes she could kill him. They head to the dance, and Rue's mother takes photos of them before they leave. We see Cassie's mother encouraging her to go to the dance, telling her not to worry and to hold her head high. Kat feels insecure about her outfit and asks her mother if it looks bad. Her mother smiles and reassures her that it's fine. Nate gets ready and meets the girl he's taking to the dance, and his parents clearly approve of her. At the dance, Maddie arrives and sits with her friends as they talk about high school and what comes next. Jules comments that high school feels miserable. Maddie grows upset when she sees Nate with his new girlfriend. We learn they broke up again after Nate became violent with her once more. Maddie sneaks away and steals the explicit video of Nate's father from his office. As she leaves, Nate's father confronts her and tells her to stay away from his son, saying their relationship won't last. Maddie insults his entire family, calls them twisted, and walks away. Determined to hurt Nate, Maddie dances with another guy at the party. Kat jokes with the girls, saying Nate and Maddie are perfect for each other and imagining them getting married and divorced 3 times. Kat later approaches Ethan and finally opens up. She admits she got upset when she saw him talking to another girl at the festival and decided to hurt him before he could hurt her. Ethan tells her he liked her from the moment he saw her and admits they could hurt each other, but promises he'll make sure he's the one who gets hurt, not her. Moved by his words, Kat cries and Ethan kisses her. Meanwhile, Rue dances with Jules, the two of them laughing and happy. When Nate steps outside, Rue follows him and warns him to stay away from her friends, or she'll go to the police and expose his father as a predator. Nate dismisses her and says says Jules hasn't told her everything. He admits he's actually drawn to Jules because of her intelligence and ambition, and insists she'll achieve great things. Rue is shaken when Nate tells her that Jules is going to leave town, and that 10 years from now, she won't even remember her. We then see Nate earlier after returning to football. His performance is poor at first, but he eventually pulls himself together and wins. Back home, his father tells him that winning doesn't mean he played well, and that with this attitude, he'll never be a true team leader. Enraged, Nate moves toward his father, who warns him to back away. Nate suddenly attacks him, but his father manages to overpower him. Nate collapses when he sees himself in the mirror, screaming and slamming his head against the wall. Terrified, his father backs away and leaves him alone. Fezco decides to rob a wealthy doctor to cover the cost of the drugs he flushed down the toilet. He breaks into the man's house, pulls a gun on him, and forces him to open the safe. In that moment, Fezco notices the doctor's young son standing nearby, which makes him hesitate. Suddenly, the doctor pulls a gun on Fezco, but Fezco manages to overpower him. He beats the doctor brutally, takes the money, and escapes. Meanwhile, Rue talks to Jules and suggests that they leave town together and disappear. Jules agrees immediately. The two ride their bikes together, laughing and feeling free. At the same time, Cassie decides to have an abortion and goes to the hospital with her mother and sister. She is terrified, but she goes through with it. Jules returns home and starts packing her clothes. Rue hesitates and asks whether what they're about to do is really the right choice. Elsewhere, Nate is at the dance and asks Maddie to dance with him. She agrees, but tells him she hates him and that he's abusive and unstable. Nate calmly says he knows. Maddie breaks down in tears and tells him they need to let each other go. Nate kisses her forehead and tells her he knows that too. Fezco makes it back home and finds the drug dealer waiting for him. The dealer is shocked when Fezco hands over the money and notices that it's covered in blood. Deciding not to kill him, the dealer takes the cash and leaves. Rue and Jules head to the train station, planning to leave together, but Rue becomes overwhelmed with doubt. She tells Jules it's a bad idea and that her mother and sister would be devastated if she disappeared. Jules tries to encourage her, insisting they'll figure things out, but Rue stands her ground. She lets Jules leave alone and breaks down in tears as the train pulls away. After returning home, Rue attends a recovery meeting with her mother. She's deeply affected when she hears her mother talk about Rue's addiction and the constant fear of losing her. Rue begins to remember the endless fights with her mother, everything that spiraled after her father's death, and the moment she took his jacket and started wearing it everywhere. That grief slowly destroyed her life, pulling her deeper into addiction. As those memories flood back, Rue feels completely disconnected from reality, as if she no longer exists on the ground, like she's walking on the walls instead of the floor.